country.
Time now for Niner Talk Central. Here's Dylan DeSimone and Turron Davenport.
Once again, Niner Talk Central back in the house. Dylan DeSimone, Turron Davenport. We are here with another episode 3 of Niner Talk Central. Got a big lineup coming up, and I'm looking forward to talking to a couple of my guys. Dylan, what's good, man?
What's going on, Turron? Everybody, welcome to another installment of Niner Talk Central. Dude, I'm happy to be here with you this week, and week of training camp. People are reporting for training camp this week.
Yes, sir. The rookies will be checking in on the 19th. Maybe some of the veterans will be getting there early as well. Big training camp for some guys, and one of which we're going to be talking to today, A.J. Jenkins, my man, wide receiver out of Illinois in his second year. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we got a nice surprise for our serious crossover listeners, and Bryan McGovern, the founder of Late Hits, the night talk show on Sirius XM NFL, is going to be on with us, and I'm looking forward to that as well, man. Definitely going to be good conversation.
Yeah, he's going to have some nice insight on some training camp action for us this week.
Right. So what we want to do for right now is go ahead and get into talking about some of the rookies that are going to be reporting to camp for our 49ers. There's definitely an abundance of guys that I'm excited about. Dylan, who in particular do you feel is going to come in and have that impact that a good player could come in and do right off the bat?
You know, I wrote about it actually last night, and I had something come out this morning on it. And on the defensive side of the ball, one of the guys that they just haven't really been talking about as much is Tank Carradine. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I am fully intrigued by this guy, especially when you see two of the top defensive players in the league, you know, are J.J. Watt and Justin Smith. And in my opinion, this guy fits the same mold.
Yeah, I mean, Tank is definitely a guy that I think will come in and play. I'm curious about how soon it's going to take him to get up to full speed, but I tell you, that is definitely something I'm going to be looking at when I go to camp. I want to watch him in those individual drills against the offensive linemen, see his explosion off the ball. I can't knock you for that one, man. Tank is definitely a guy to watch out for.
Yeah, you know, Matt Miller had him as a top 5. I mean, injury aside, top 5 talent in the NFL draft. San Francisco got him at number 40. So, I mean, not only was it a steal, but people were forgetting about him because, you know, flew under the radar with the injury.
Right. And, hey, I mean, he fell right into the 49ers' lap, and he's definitely somebody that could come in. You know, Justin Smith has got a couple years left. I'm glad they were able to bring him back. But he's somebody I think will come in and fill that void once Justin Smith moves on. And you look at the size and stature, he's very similar in build. So I'm very excited about him coming into camp. I tell you what, though, the one that I'm really looking at, obviously, is Eric Reed, but I'm very excited about Vance McDonald.
Yes.
I really cannot wait to see him work out of the slot, the wing position, and he's such a versatile player. I was going into the draft a little more excited about Travis Kelce. That was a guy I really thought that was going to end up being a 49er. But once they made the pick of Vance McDonald, I went back and took another look at him, and he's definitely somebody that will come in and fill the void left by Delanie Walker.
Not only fill the void, but I mean, this is an upgrade. I mean, this is a huge upgrade. I've been telling people that if Vance McDonald was drafted pretty much anywhere else, he would have been the starting tight end by week 1, and would have been a good one. You know, saw NFL comparisons to him and Kyle Rudolph, who's the red zone threat for Minnesota. You know, there's that big kind of athletic tight end that's going to add another dimension to this offense, which we kind of need with Crabtree out.
Yeah, definitely need that threat in the red zone. You know, you speak of Kyle Rudolph, man. He gave Whitner the business that one-hand catch in Minnesota, man. That was some bad news right there. But I like the fact that he's big. His size, he's definitely going to help out in the red zone. And the thing is, looking at some of his highlights, one of the games, I forget who they played, but he caught a slant at like the 17-yard line, broke a tackle, and ran into the end zone to score a touchdown. That's the kind of stuff that this team is going to need. They're going to need somebody that can, be the guy that you could throw the ball up to, allow him the high point, but also somebody that could break tackles. He's a big player, so he's going to be a really good option, not only in the red zone from the 30-yard line and in. I mean, I'm very excited about him. I love the 12 personnel. That's one of my favorite formations because of just the way that it could dictate matchups. Vernon Davis obviously is a mismatch. And you put a 6'4", 260-plus pound guy that's running a 4'6", 4'7", against some of these safeties or even the linebackers. I mean, there's a mismatch with speed or size, whichever way you want to put it. I like the guy, the rookie tight end out of Rice, a lot.
And yeah, I don't think he's going to be the only pass catcher contributing as a rookie too. I mean, we just had our guest last week. I mean, Bischoff was telling us all about Quentin Patton.
Right.
And he's probably another player that's going to make an impact. And you talk about rookie wide receivers kind of coming in, and especially if you're a first round guy, but the wide receiver position is so highly profiled that you kind of want that instant impact right away. I'd say it's easier to transition from college to the pro game as, say, a running back, maybe a pro-ready tackle. But, I mean, the wide receiver position, you expect instant results. And we didn't get that from A.J. Jenkins last year. We're kind of expecting it from Quentin Patton.
Honestly, I think it's difficult to make the transition from a wide receiver in college to the NFL. I mean, you think about it. You look at a guy like trying to think of somebody. You look at Crabtree in school, or you look at Quentin Patton, perfect example. So, how many NFL caliber corners did he go against? He went against a few, and he worked out against them. But the thing you got to remember is these college DBs. Not all of them are going to the league. I mean, most of them are going to end up selling insurance after their senior year. Not that there's anything wrong with selling insurance. I just say that just as a something that could be looked at as different from playing in the NFL. So not only that, the game gets quicker. Your assignments are much more difficult as far as adjusting on the fly. Some of these guys are able to come out of the pro-style offenses where they are able to make the route adjustments on the fly, read the coverages, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the case for everyone. And then not to mention, as a receiver in college, it's a lot easier to get open. You're getting more open, as a matter of fact, in college than you are in the NFL. So there's a jump that you have to make. And I think A.J.
Sure.
Jenkins is a good example. We're going to talk to him later, and that's something I want to ask him about, the difference between playing in college where he dominated and playing in the NFL where he did not get off to the best start, which is fine. That's me personally. I expect a slow start for wide receivers coming into the NFL.
Well, there's a lot. Yeah, I agree with most of that. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and aside from the stuff that you mentioned, things kind of have to line up. It's kind of like tumblers in a lock. You kind of need everything to line up. You need a system. You need a quarterback. I mean, offensive line, if it can give your quarterback time, all the better. You need other weapons, so you're not kind of all the attention's not focused on you. And I think one of the players that we've been able to just kind of seen, the one dominant receiver that we were able to kind of see this last decade and make an instant impact is who's that? Who am I thinking of?
Instant impact. You must be thinking of Anquan Bolden.
Well, I was thinking recently. I was thinking AJ Green.
Oh, okay. Well, you're talking about in the overall NFL. Yeah, I mean, AJ Green came in and right away he was a deep threat. And he's a one-of-a-kind type of talent. I mean, you look at his ability to get downfield, his jumping ability, his catching ability, he's a problem. Yeah. Julio Jones, same case.
True,
the size, it's crazy. So, I mean, you are going to get these guys every once in a while that are going to come in and really have a major impact. But for the most part, it's usually the tail end of year 2, year 3 when they really get going. Crabtree, for example, his progress was really stunted by being in a a prehistoric offense, and then having Alex Smith as his quarterback in that prehistoric offense. He began to open up a little bit in a couple seasons ago, but really last year when he was able to have a quarterback that could get the ball downfield, get the ball to him on the run, not afraid to throw the ball to him on the middle, intermediate routes across the middle, he exploded. Kaepernick was looking for him all the time. That was their connection. Kaepernick to Crabtree. That's what it was. So once he got into an offense where he was able to flourish, he began to blossom. But it just reinforces what you said about having to be in the right system. And then another good point you made was being the main guy. It's difficult when all the attention is focused on you. Ask Justin Blackman last year. But once things started to get rolling, Cecil Shorts got going, and then next thing you know, they're putting up some really good numbers. When they took out Blaine Gabbert and Chad Henne came in, and that offense really came together, and he had I think it was a 200-yard receiving game. But again, it just reinforces you have to have the right match. If you don't have the right match, I don't care how good you are. Look at Kendall Wright stuck there in Tennessee with Jake Locker. I mean, come on.
They got more receivers than they even know what to do with.
Right. And then even a quarterback definitely has the influence. You mentioned that too. Look at Fitzgerald, what he suffered from last year with the quarterbacks that they had. And then this year they got Carson Palmer. Watch his numbers just go right back up to where they were. So you have to have certain things aligned in order to be successful, especially as a rookie. But again, the Fitzgerald example just shows you how having the quarterback and everything in line could even affect a veteran player. Reggie Wayne also 2 years ago. So definitely some things to consider. I think Patton will come in and contribute. I think he's going to be a guy to play the slot. I definitely see him as a Z. And then also, Vance McDonald. Definitely excited about him.
Yeah, all those weapons. And the thing is, we'd like to say, hey, yeah, they can have time. These guys can acclimate. They can, they can have time. But the thing is, they really don't. We don't really have, and this could go on all day. We could relate it to how, there's veterans on a team that have a limited window to kind of win a Super Bowl here. San Francisco has to rely on a lot of players that were not here a year ago. Not at all. I mean, you have Vance McDonald and Quentin Patton and A.J. Jenkins. Kyle Williams was injured, only played one game with Colin Kaepernick. There are guys that have pretty much zero chemistry with each other, and we're kind of expecting results from them. So Patton has an opportunity like receivers haven't had, rookie receivers haven't had before.
Yeah, he definitely, it's a golden opportunity, but it's kind of a gift and a curse. He's coming into offense that's so complex, and he's going to be required to learn a few different positions as far as on the wide receiver side of things. So it could come back to haunt him initially in that he won't be able to go full speed, so to speak. And I think what I'm about to say really hurt A.J. Jenkins last year in that he didn't know the offense 100%. And you look at A.J., he was a guy that relies so much on speed, and it's hard to go full speed when you don't know where you're going, and that's I think was a problem. And not to knock A.J., the guy could play, and he's definitely showing that. We'll get into that a little bit later with some of the things that some of his teammates have said about him. So it's not to knock him, but I just think that it's going to be very, very crucial for Quentin Patton to come in and learn that offense quick. Hopefully he'll be able to focus on one or two positions instead of bouncing around all over, between the three spots, X, Z, and also the slot. If he's able to do that, I think he's going to contribute right away.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I'm really excited to see them all kind of help each other out. As like this is a unit, it's one mind, one goal. Everyone's working together to kind of get it done. A lot of people were crushed by the Crabtree injury, but I think it opens up a whole window of possibilities that we haven't seen before. I think San Francisco is going to be able to spread the ball around more than they thought was possible.
Well, then not to mention, they traded for some guy named Anquan Bolden, who happened to have one of the better runs at the end of the playoffs. So that definitely will contribute too. He's going to take over at the Z. I was curious how they were going to work that with him and Crabtree, because they're pretty much the same player. They're both Z's. They're both guys that could really dominate in the slot. You look at who had the most yards out of the after catch out of the slot position. Number one was Bolden. Two, right behind him by 0.3 yards, was Michael Crabtree. So that was going to be something interesting too. We'll see how it works out when Crab comes back. They'll bring him along slowly, I think, in November. But in the meantime, you got a group of receivers that have a golden opportunity. We didn't talk about Ricardo Lockett. He's a guy I touched on in my training camp preview that I put on Golden Gate Sports this morning. And the thing that you got to remember about him is he has world-class speed. This is a guy that was the D2 national champion in the 200-yard meter dash when he was in college. And the thing is that speed translated onto the football field.
Yeah, look at his stats. He's averaging 52-plus yards a catch right now.
Hey, 2 touchdowns over 40 yards. A 44-yarder against the 49ers when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. And then also when he was with the Seahawks, he had a 61-yard touchdown. The proof is in the pudding. The dude could get downfield. So I just want to see if that's something he could do consistently. If he could consistently come in and be a deep threat, hey, you know what? He will get a lot of time at the X spot.
Now, what's his problem, though? I mean, if not to say that there is a problem, but what's holding him back from becoming a dominant vertical threat? I mean, other than consistency, I mean, with Ginn, it was a hands problem.
I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think it's just a matter of getting the opportunity, to be honest with you.
Time on task?
I think it's just a matter. He has to get the opportunity. Sidney Rice went down a couple years ago, and that's when he came in and got to get some time. But if you remember, they were, you got Golden Tate, you got when he was on the team, you had Mike Williams going. They had a few guys going, Sidney Rice until he got hurt. So he was kind of just caught in a logjam, and you figure he's an undrafted free agent. So they're not going to do every single thing they can to get this guy on the field right away. And they tried to stock him away on the practice squad, and for whatever reason, he got cut last year, and the 49ers scooped him right up.
Yeah. And that could play out for us. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I've been curious about Lockett because he is the one receiver that differs from the body type receivers that we have, which are a lot of small athletic guys. He's the only one that stands out at 6'2" as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean 6'2", and have you seen him in person?
I have not.
Hey, I didn't know who he was when I saw him the first couple of games. And he would come out and warm up with Cap and with Tozy, and I kept saying, man, who is this dude, man? He's a very, very well put together wide receiver, man. He's thick throughout his legs. His frame is thick. Upper body is well put together. And the thing that you always look at, me personally, with football players is their legs. I want to see what type of shape their legs are in, because that's where all your power comes from. Mm-hmm. Football it's played with, they call it football, foot. That's your lower body. It's played with your lower body. And I always look at that when I look at a football player, and I tell you, he passes that test.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's got some he's got the license to really do something here. So, I mean, I'm excited for Lockett. I'm excited for Patton and Jenkins. I'm excited to talk to Jenkins to see what kind of progress he's made.
Yeah. You know what, though? We didn't even talk about Mario Manningham either. I mean, here's a guy that is guaranteed almost every game that I've watched him, he's good for at least one big play. I was watching the Giants and Patriots Super Bowl yesterday. They had a little marathon of the Giants, and I got some bad feelings when I saw Victor Cruz working out at Candlestick in the NFC Championship game, and then they showed Manningham's catch. He beat Tremaine Brock, for that touchdown. He ran that post right after T. Brown went down with the collision with Deshaun Golson, and that was his big play there. But you look at the Super Bowl, he had that big play down the sideline, a tremendous catch, tremendous, to get it first, keep control of the ball and keep his feet in bound late in the game when you have a safety bearing down on you and Patrick Chung that was, ready to take his head off. But he caught the ball, kept his feet in bounds, and made a great catch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think he gets enough credit for his toughness and focus and concentration and stuff like that. I mean, he is kind of a slender receiver, but I mean, you look at the plays that he made. I remember that first connection with Kaepernick when he threw it to the sideline. They threw it to Manningham's outside shoulder. He adjusted to the ball and turned right upfield.
yeah,
They had they were able to hand the ball off to him. I think he had a big play versus the Saints.
yeah, on the reverse.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
mean, go ahead.
he'll run, he'll work for yards, and those are the kinds of guys that San Francisco loves. Those are the kinds of guys that we need.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's the type of play he got hurt on. Trying to get the extra yard, and I think it was KJ Wright came over and dinged him in the knee, and man, he was out. I hated seeing him get hurt because he's a guy that I liked in college. I was curious how he would work out in the NFL because he had the speed concerns and obviously the size concerns. But it just goes to show you can't measure what's in a guy's chest, man, how his heart beats. And I give him all the credit, and I can't wait till he comes back. And that's why I feel good about this wide receiver core that we have, despite the loss of Crabtree. You hate to see Crabtree's my favorite receiver in the league, by the way. So, you hate to see him get hurt, but I'm still confident in this core that we have.
I am too. It's deeper than people think. And then let these guys play a whole season, and then let's get Crabtree back late in the season and see how that playoff run goes.
Yeah, you can't beat that, man. Getting back in November, he's already in the gym, working out and all that good stuff. We'll see. The thing that was so good about him is they were able to get into the Achilles right away and stitch it back together because it wasn't so much swelling. So he definitely was a little bit more ahead of the game as far as when it came to recovering from the injury. And hey, man, I'm happy about it. I'm definitely happy about his potential to come back. Another thing that's good is you got Kendall Hunter who is coming back from the same injury. So you got somebody that you could talk to, about different things as far as what did you do to get over this hump, and what did you do when this happened, etc. It's always good to have somebody to lean on for experience when you're going through something like that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. Hit on a lot of great points.
Go ahead and go to a break. We're going to go to a break and check it out. AJ should be on with us soon, so we will be right back.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onnit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onnit.com, onnit.com/football radio.
This is Ian Williams from the San Francisco 49ers, and you're listening to Niner Talk Central.
We got AJ Jenkins on the line. Definitely one of my guys on the 49ers, one of my receivers that I really like, and I'm excited about going into the season. AJ, what's good with you, man?
What's going on with you? I'm good.
Oh, man, we're good. We're good. Dylan, you on?
Yeah, I'm here. AJ, man, it's exciting to have you. We're real excited to talk to you. How's your off season going?
So far, so good, man.
So how was things? What was it like, man, in Atlanta working out with Kaepernick and with Lockett? What were some of the things that you were doing down there in the off season?
It's pretty much, man, just grinding. I didn't really have a long off season for us. Like after the Super Bowl, we really got it right into the grind mode, like right after the Super Bowl. So we was just down there, man, just us three, and it was Chad Hall was down there too. So we was there just working out every day, just learning the playbook and just learning, just trying to hang around each other just as much as possible so we kind of get that bond, so that's what we was doing.
Yeah, that's good money right there. Good to hear. Definitely good to hear. So as far as this season coming up, I heard you on one of your interviews. You were saying that you're learning all three of the positions. Is there a particular, me personally, just looking at it, outside looking at in, I'm thinking you're going to take a lot of reps at the X position. Is there any particular spot that the coaches are planning to work you at? Are you going to work all three?
I mean, it's just basically, we all just jumping in there right now. I mean, we really don't have a so-called position. I mean, so we just, everybody just taking reps and everybody just trying to put things on film. So, I mean, that's the main thing right now. We're trying to showcase what we got on film, and then they're going to be able to choose, like, what play, what, like, towards the season, so.
Okay. Nice. So that being said, do you have a preference?
Nah, not at all. Just play receiver, that's it.
Just get in where you fit in. I feel that.
Exactly.
Now, you're the only other first-round wide receiver on the roster. Michael Crabtree had kind of gone down and with the Achilles, which everyone kind of knows about. He hadn't actually broken through until his fourth year here. It kind of took some time to kind of evolve in the system. Everything kind of worked out. Do you think you're feeling the pressure to perform this year, or do you think slow and steady kind of wins the race?
I don't know, man. I don't really feed into all the pressure. I mean, because obviously when people put them kind of things on you and if you don't live up to them expectations, then everybody calls you all kind of names and they kind of just degrade you. And it kind of discourages you, like mentally tough. So, I mean, last year was a learning year for me, and I really don't I don't regret anything that I went through last year because obviously that was just my time to sit back and just learn and watch Randy Moss and Crab and those guys and Manningham and do their thing. So this year, it's a new year. I'm not looking in the past no more. It's a new year. We have new receivers on this team, and so hopefully we're going to see what happens.
Awesome. Now, has Crabtree actually talked to you about any of that stuff off the field, dealing with anything like that?
I mean, we tell me some things that he was going through when he was a rookie and whatnot. And, and not just him, just everybody. Like, even Randy Moss talked to me a lot. Mario Manningham and Kyle Williams and, even Vernon Davis kind of gave me a little bit of advice. So it was very helpful. But, we'll see what happens this year with the new 17. So we'll see.
Yeah, see, I think the thing that's really good for you in this situation is the fit. You come in and you mentioned you got Crabtree, you got Vernon Davis, two guys who went through similar things as far as the start to their career. So you definitely have veterans to lean on. And picking up Bolden, I think, was major. Have you gotten to work with him on routes and just getting a better understanding? I mean, he's one of the best receivers in this league over the last 10 years. So I'm sure that he's benefited you as far as picking his brain. What are some things that he's helped you with and told you to look for coming into the season?
I mean, he just, since the day he got here, he's kind of took me under his wing. And it's kind of been, I've been real fortunate because a lot of rookies, not even the first round, but like a lot of rookies don't really have that kind of veteran leadership. Like, cause this last year I just had Randy Moss, and this year I got Anquan. So I'm getting kind of spoiled. So I'm trying to take as much insight as I can from these guys and just put it into my game and trying to get myself ready to play. But Anquan has been there for me since he's been here. I learned a lot from him, along with, once again, I learned a lot from all them guys, like all the guys that's in that room. But, and not just me, like all the rookies and like all the young receivers like in that room, he had put it up on his shoulders, kind of be that leader, like that old veteran guy. So, I mean, it's not just me that he's spent all this time and attention on. It's kind of just the whole overall, just if you're a young guy, then he feels like he needs to be there for you. So that's kind of like his mindset.
Yeah, that's good, man. You got to pass it along, pay it forward. So just thinking about how things were in college, I watched the highlights a lot. I watched a few of your games as well. You put up some really good numbers. What really is the difference? And earlier we were talking about how the transition from college to the NFL is a really difficult one for a receiver. So can you pinpoint on some things that the corners do different in the NFL as compared to in college?
Just the overall scheme that defenses play. I'm always in Illinois playing the Big Ten, and I was playing against, corners like Purdue and Penn State and Indiana. But now I'm in the league playing against, in practice I'm playing against Namdi Amso. I'm playing against Carlos Rogers. I'm playing against proven veterans.
Right.
So it's just like the knowledge of the game. So them guys are so much better than his college. I mean, not necessarily athletically better, but just far as mentally better. And that's what young guys, as far as myself, don't really understand, because when you come into the league, and you look good in the shorts on pro day and all that stuff, you look good, and then you go out there on the field, it's mental now, because everybody's fast, everybody's good. So, and that's one part of my game that I had to work on last year, was just the mental aspect. So it wasn't the fact that I can't do it; it's the fact that you go out there. You got guys who've been doing this thing for 10 years, and that's what they really do. So you have to really get on their level as far as the mental aspect of the game. So that's like the biggest difference for me, that I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's exactly right. I mean, whatever you're doing, football or whatever. I mean, the guy that's got 5, 10 years, any more experience on you is, I mean, there's the advantage right there.
Right. I'm going against the defense. We got Pat Willis and all of them Bowman, and so I mean, it's a different ball game out there when you're playing against them guys and playing in college.
But Turron was talking about what you did in college, and this is what we think, that you actually have a chance to offer San Francisco, which honestly is the one knock against them, is that they don't have a deep threat, a vertical guy. Now you run in the you run in the 4.3s, and consistently. I know you've been trying to put on weight. I don't know if that's going to affect your speed or if you've thought about that. But do you think that's an element that you're going to bring to San Francisco?
I mean, that's just a part of my game. I've been playing this game for a long time, and I've always been fast. So, I can be whatever. As long as I'm out there making plays and helping this team win, I don't care if they want me to be the deep threat or the short threat. I don't care. So I'm just trying to get on the field and make plays for this organization and, and just make my mark.
Yeah, that makes sense. So coming up, when you were a younger guy, were there any particular receivers or players that you really liked and looked up to when you were coming through the pound leagues and in high school, et cetera?
Yeah, like when I was a Jet, that's what we say in Florida when you're a young kid, Jet. So when I was one of them, I used to always, for some reason, I was always looking up to Barry Sanders. I was a running back at first. I wasn't a playing receiver.
Okay.
I started playing receiver until I got to high school. So when I was a running back, Barry Sanders was my idol that I was looking up to as a kid. So
Barry Sanders. Okay.
Well,
it was Andre Reed and Jerry Rice for me when I was younger, man. Those were my guys. But what about? Yeah, exactly. Andre Reed get that yak for you, man. He's one of the best ever at that. What corners, like, as far as in training camp and in practice throughout the season, who were some of the corners? You mentioned Nnamdi. In the OTAs you mentioned Nnamdi, but last year, you mentioned Los, Rogers. What about Culliver and Paris Cox? Who were some guys that you really looked forward to working out against in one-on-ones and things like that?
Man, I'm looking forward to compete, man. I mean, we all out there trying to earn a job, and this, and me having to kind of gain that respect. I have to just go against whoever they put in front of me. So I don't care.
Sure.
I mean, that's just who it is. So I mean, I can't really. So Paris Cox or whoever, I mean, they're all great DBs. They all have athletic ability. I mean, just all around the board, we have good players all over this team. So. I'm just fortunate, man, to be a part of a great team to where I can go out here and compete against guys like this every single day. So then on Sundays it wouldn't be as hard. So. Yeah,
I could agree to that, man. I like Culliver. I know Dylan at DeSimone. He's a big Culliver guy, so he definitely was probably looking forward to hearing what you had to say about going against him.
Yeah,
man.
Now, can you spell Nnamdi Asomugha?
No, I can't spell it, bro. I mean, they tried to make me do it one time on TV, but it's crazy because Nnamdi also like his locker's like right next to mine, so I try to look at his locker, but it kind of caught me. So now I don't even know how to even. I don't know if I'm even saying it right. To be honest with you, last time I'm not. So
I think there's two N's two N's to start with?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know.
two N's. That last name is what ties me up. That's what puts me through some trouble. So, well, AJ, man, it was great to have you on, man. I've really been looking forward to getting to do this interview with you. And like I said, you were definitely one of my guys on this team, one of my favorite players. And man, I'm just looking forward to the season. I'm gonna be out there. I'm in the Philadelphia area, but I come out to the Bay for a lot of the games, and I'm on the road with you guys a lot. And I'll be at training camp this year, and I can't wait to come out and see you do your thing against those DBs, man. And all I can say is just keep grinding, and you know what you do. You grind to shine.
You already know. There's one way to do it.
Cigar fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
Right, so we're back. We had AJ Jenkins on. That interview was brought to you by OwnIt.com. All of our 49ers Talk Central radio listeners can log on to ONNIT.com and put in PFC as your discount code, and you get 10% off. Right now we're going to go in and bring my man, Bryan McGovern, B-Mac, for my Sirius radio listeners. He was, as you guys know, the creator of the show Late Hits and the first NFL on-air talk personality for Sirius Radio. My man, B-Mac. What's up, man?
Turron, it's great to talk to you and to join Dylan also. It's great to hear that you're doing your thing now, and I hear you're very successful with it, which doesn't surprise me. You're always one of our great callers, and I always look forward to hearing from you on our program. So I'm happy for you, and hey, I'm happy for Niner Nation to be on this program because you guys certainly have a bright future with that football team.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. Hey, Dylan, I'm going to tell you something about B-Mac, man. B-Mac was so good on the air that when I called and we talked 2 times, after that, I became a lifetime subscriber to Sirius Radio. You know, just based off of what he did on his show, man. I always loved the way he kept it real. He was very open and told it like it is, man. And you can't ask for anything more than that. So, you know, again, I definitely appreciate that, B-Mac. And when it comes to a style and the way that you go about doing things, I mean, that's something that, to be honest with you, I've patterned myself after. So it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. As soon as this idea was presented to me, you were one of the first people I wanted to get on here, man.
I appreciate it, Turron. Those are kind words, and I really, you know, coming from you, you know, we go way back. But it's just, you know, having grown up playing sports like you guys have, you know, I knew I wanted to be a pro athlete, but once you get to that point in high school and you figure out, well, maybe I'm not going to make it to the NFL. You know, I'm not tall enough to play in the NBA. I can't hit a curveball, so I'm not playing baseball. What do? Well, I wound up going to journalism school at the University of Missouri, and it turned out to be a great choice. Missouri has one of the best journalism schools in the nation. And I think one of the things that I learned early on was if you're going to do this, you have to be yourself. And that was, you know, my modus operandi on the air was just to be myself. And just as you heard me on the air, knowing you off the air, that's how I am.
Right.
I'm cordial to everyone and appreciated all the calls, all the guests, and really all the relationships that I was able to make over the years with, you know, some of these athletes that, you know, we see from afar. And, you know, as a kid, you grow up and you idolize these guys, and then you start working with them, and you realize that these guys are just regular guys too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And just a perfect example, Dylan, just to fill you in, one of the hosts that he had was the GOAT, man, Jerry Rice. And that was that was the show that I used to call it. He had Jerry Rice as the host, man. And just to get the opportunity to talk to Jerry Rice, I was amazed at that. And B-Mac always kept me on for a good amount of time, and I definitely appreciated that. Speaking of which, what was it like working with Jerry Rice, man?
Oh, it was an honor. It was a great pleasure. And again, you know, just getting to know somebody like that and realizing that Jerry is a great guy, you know, very friendly, very accommodating. He worked very hard to get better at what he was doing. You know, we worked together for a year,
and I put a lot of time in behind the scenes to try to help Jerry out. Actually, that's what I've been doing now for, well, I'd say the last 8 years. I've had a broadcast school basically for athletes that I've been able to train these guys on the side and, not really publicize it, but be able to work with these guys. And a lot of them have gone on to either work with us at Sirius or, now at different stations around the country, podcasts. Some guys are on the NFL Network. So to be able to work with some of these guys is a pleasure. And, Jerry was one of the guys who was really into it. He really took that work ethic that you saw on the football field, and he took that to another level when he got into the media now. And I have to be honest with you, it was a struggle for Jerry. It was. He's not a natural broadcaster, but he worked hard at it. He put the time in. He wanted to be as good as he could be, and then you see him on ESPN, and I'm proud of him for doing that. But this was before he went on Dancing with the Stars when I had Jerry with me. So he left me for Dancing with the Stars. But he did well on that show. It seems like whatever Jerry does, he does well. But it was a great pleasure working with him and being able to, school him up a little bit. I mean, that's a great honor. I mean, it's like talking to, Thomas Edison about electricity. I'm talking to, Jerry Rice. It doesn't get better than that. And just to know that, he is a good guy. Because, a lot of these guys aren't that good, and some of these guys have perception problems, and they worry about what people say about them after their careers, even during their careers. But he wasn't like that. I mean, he's very secure in his position as the GOAT, as you say. And when he went to the Hall of Fame, I actually sent him a jersey, a Niners jersey on the back of it said GOAT. So he really appreciated that. And just to have that bond with Jerry and to have worked with him, it was a great experience. It was a great pleasure and honor. And I think we all learned a lot from Jerry, whether it was a listener or me as a co-host. Here's a guy that, again, you could argue is the greatest player of all time, certainly the greatest receiver of all time, but just what was going on in his head when Joe Montana was lining up under center, when Bill Walsh was bark-counting from the sidelines, and to know that he came from humble beginnings to become this great, amazing player really is a rags to riches story. But he doesn't forget where he comes from. He's a humble guy, even though, he does wear one of those Super Bowl rings around his neck. Remember the first time I met him, that was one of the first things I saw. I said, Jerry, everybody knows you're Jerry Rice. It's not like that Super Bowl ring has to signify that you are Jerry, but he's one of those guys that he's so proud of his career. And one of the more interesting moments that I had with him in terms of on the air was when we had Terrell Owens on. And this was when Theo was with the Eagles. And, we had talked about the interview beforehand, Jerry and I. And Jerry, honestly, wasn't Theo's biggest fan. And there were some moments during the interview that were a little edgy, I would say, because it was uncomfortable for me. I mean, here you have Theo on one side, then you got Jerry on the other side. And Theo was praising Jerry, saying, hey, everything I learned from you. And Jerry almost took that as an insult because he was looking at the antics that Theo was performing in Philadelphia at the time. Remember when he was doing the sit-ups in the driveway and doing the curls in front of him? So that was kind of when Theo went astray a little bit after he left the Niners. But, ultimately, I think they have a great respect for each other. But that was one of the more awkward moments, I would say, in terms of the Jerry Rice era on the air, was having Theo on. But, again, it was a great pleasure to work with Jerry. I have nothing bad to say about the guy. We still remain in contact to this day. And it was just a lot of fun to be able to work with a guy like Jerry Rice.
I'd like to add a third wide receiver to that conversation. What did you think about Randy Moss proclaiming himself as the greatest?
I think Randy's just being Randy, when he says things like that. He's a great player. You can't take anything away from the guy. Is he the greatest? No, he's not the greatest. But, I think when you look at his and we talked about this a few years ago, where he was physically at the age of, say, 35 versus where T.O. was at 35, it wasn't even close. I know T.O. is 39 now, but, T.O. always kept himself in amazing shape. And it just seemed like Randy would always get caught up with some nicks and bruises, wasn't always in the right spot in terms of, he thought this would be a good spot to maybe win a ring, go to New England, obviously set some records with Tom Brady, still got beaten in the Super Bowl by the New York Giants. So I think it's been a tough run for him because of the things that are said about Randy Moss. But I don't mind Randy being Randy because I think he is one of the great receivers we've seen, especially in the last 20, 25 years. But we also know he's got a pretty big ego. But I think to be great in the NFL or to be great in any sport, you have to have a pretty good ego and believe in yourself.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And it's funny you mentioned how they lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants because I know that's your team and everything, and I never held that against you. But Dylan, did you know that? Did you know that B-Mac, his favorite team is the Giants?
I did come across this. I was curious, especially because the rivalry, it seemed like between the Giants and 49ers had recently just kind of picked up steam again. You know?
Yeah, well, growing up around that, when Montana was there and when Jerry was there and some of those great playoff games that the Giants had, I'll never forget Jerry at the Meadowlands dropping that football when he was on the way to the end zone, and I would tease him about that thing. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed all those rivalries. I enjoyed all those rivalries. I mean, growing up, I was a Giants fan, and they're still my team. But once you enter, the media realm, it changes. I remember my first assignment coming out of Mizzou was covering the New York Yankees, and I was a lifelong Yankee fan. And there I am at 21 years old. This is 1996. I'm sitting in the dugout with Joe Torre and Derek Jeter. And I couldn't believe it, but you have to get past that, and then you realize these guys are there to do their job. They're people too. They have bad days, and you have to understand that. But it's something you have to get past. But being a Giant fan, I've enjoyed it in the media, but ultimately I'm pretty partial, and I think Turron will be the first to tell you that when I was on the air with NFL Radio, I was probably more critical of the Giants than I was of any other team, because they are my team. And maybe you guys find yourself doing that too with the Niners here on this broadcast network. You find yourself being pretty critical of the team because you want to see them do well, and you also see it from an insider angle, which gives you a fresh perspective.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I mean, after the Super Bowl, you're one of the ones that text me, hey, man, maybe next year, it still had a great season. So I definitely know that you had me in mind after that loss, man. That was a bad loss. But
it's tough. It's tough, especially when you make that big second half run and all the adversity that the Niners overcame last year. That is what impressed me the most. I mean, you go from Alex Smith all of a sudden to Colin Kaepernick. You had success with Alex Smith the year before, and that was a heck of a championship game between the Giants and the Niners in 2011. I mean, Eli Manning admitted that he was never hit that hard in his life than he was by the Niner defense in that ballgame. I mean, they were all over him. But, again, when we talk about adversity, what the Niners were able to overcome last year, what the Giants did in 2011, it's all about getting over those hurdles and having a quarterback who's capable of making big plays in big spots. And when you look around the league, there's still only about 6 or 8 of those guys, maybe 10 if you want to stretch it that far. We saw Flacco step up last year, and he's always been a very good quarterback. But last year he became a great quarterback because he made big plays in big spots. And I think when you look around the league, maybe that's the problem in Atlanta with the Falcons right now. Matt Ryan's a very good quarterback, but he hasn't been able to get over the hump in the playoffs. I mean, last year they were the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they still can't get it done. So to me, it's about the hurdles that you overcome over the course of the year. That makes you stronger. And the NFL has become one of those leagues where it's just about getting to the postseason now. You don't have to be, the Chicago Bears in 1985 anymore and be that dominant. I mean, you could be 9-7 like the Giants have shown us and win a Super Bowl. So you want to be hot, playing your best ball December into January. And even this year, guys, really presents, I think, an intriguing Super Bowl. Being that if that Meadowlands in the New York, New Jersey area, I mean, that's where I grew up. And I'll tell you, early February, it's cold. I mean, you're probably going to have snow, maybe some sleet, some hail, but you have to put that behind you. I think it's an intriguing challenge because the team that wins the Super Bowl this year cannot be a predominantly passing team. And I think that's where the Niners come in. They're not really a passing team. I mean, last year their running game, far outweighed their passing game, and that is one of the advantages I think maybe a team like San Fran has over, say, New Orleans, which I know those teams match up in the regular season. But the Saints, they have to establish a running game. They're going to expect to win, the Super Bowl in early February at the Meadowlands. I mean, there's going to be swirling winds and maybe tough to throw the ball. But teams like the Niners, the Seahawks in the NFC West also, they have young quarterbacks that can move and they have good running games. So I think the team that wins the Super Bowl is going to have to run the football well this year.
Yeah, Bryan, you bring up a lot of great points there. I mean, a lot of things you hit on there about resiliency, which I think San Francisco is in the top of the most resilient teams in the National Football League today. I think it started in Philadelphia, that game in 2011 when Justin Smith knocked the fumble out of Jeremy Maclin's just knocked it loose on that break down the left sideline, and San Francisco recovered, and it kind of had that, okay, we believe in this kind of a thing, and it's been nonstop. It's snowballed. Like, hate to bring up the D word, but it snowballed kind of like the dynasty had back in the 80s.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, Dylan. Yeah, they have a good young core, and that's what I'm impressed with. The fact that the Niners have a good, young, talented group of players. I mean, maybe this is the end of Frank, or towards the end of Frank Gore's career, but they still have young running backs behind them. Gore's still going to be featured this year. Now, I guess the big question is who replaces Crabtree, and I know you guys had A.J. Jenkins on earlier. Maybe we can go over that a little bit, because I'm really curious as to who is going to step up opposite Anquan Boldin.
Yeah, when you look at who's going to step up opposite Boldin, one guy I definitely always bring up is A.J. Jenkins. He's the guy I think will be the one to come in. He's a 4-3 guy. He can stretch the field, so I see him at the X spot, and I think that he could come in and play that position. You got also the former Giant, Mario Manningham, who I think is really good at working outside, and he's good for at least one good big play per game. So I think he's somebody to look at. But then there's a couple other guys. You got to look at.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Turron.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at Quentin Patton, the rookie that's coming in. And then also they picked up a guy from the Seahawks, Ricardo Lockett, who already, as we mentioned earlier, has over 40-yard touchdowns to his credit. He's a national champion in the 200 in college, so he's definitely somebody that'll come in. And then, Dylan, I know you want to talk about your man Kyle Williams, so let's hear about that.
The one man, I love talking ball with Turron. It's a blast for me. Sometimes we differ. This is one of our big differences is where, who's going to maybe step up a wide receiver. I'm a big believer in Kyle Williams, mainly because all of a sudden San Francisco's receivers have the ability to see their ceiling with Colin Kaepernick. And I think when you look at the physical ability of Kyle Williams, you look at the system, you look at what Kyle Williams did at Arizona State, I think all things point to them being a very complementary receiver-quarterback duo. I mean, with Kyle Williams' speed, which if you look at it coming out, he ran a 4.33 and a 4.34 before the draft, which is what Mike Wallace ran. Mike Wallace ran a 4.33 at the Combine. So you're talking about that kind of speed and this wide-open spread offense and the Victor Cruz, Steve Smith type players that you see around the league. I don't see any reason why Kyle Williams can't win this job.
I like Kyle Williams' ability as a receiver, but of course, Dylan, all the Giant fans want to thank Kyle Williams for that big fumble in the 2011 NFC Championship game. But outside of putting back there on punt returns, because you guys didn't have Penn Gittin available for that ball game, he was in a tough spot. But again, he was a second-year player then. I give the guy a lot of credit. I know he got a lot of death threats on social media, et cetera, but here he is still standing. And again, going into a year where, as you say, he can certainly prove himself to be a top receiver on this team. And getting back to Manningham, another former Giant who made that huge play in the Super Bowl against the Patriots to set up the game-winning touchdown. He's coming off that knee injury, right, guys? So where are you hearing as far as Manningham? Will he be ready for Week 1?
He may be ready for Week 1. They're talking about they might pup him, but it's really going to depend on how he comes along at the beginning of camp. He's not going to be there practicing, but hopefully, like by Week 2 or something like that, he'll be ready to go. So it's all up in the air. You know, the 49ers are so quiet with those type of things, so no one really truthfully knows exactly what's going to happen. And even Kyle Williams is in question. He did some work in on one-on-ones, but he didn't really work in the team drills or anything like that. So it's just a wait-and-see kind of approach.
That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm not too worried about the Niner offense, though. You know, you're under the guidance of a great coach in Harbaugh. I think it's still about the defense in San Fran. You've got a top-5 defense. It was terrific last year. Now you add some depth along that defensive line. I really like Tank Carradine, the guy that you got out of Florida State in the second round. Glenn Dorsey could be a good pickup out of Kansas City. He's never really realized his potential. Former top 10 Heisman guy at LSU. We rarely see that for defensive players. And obviously, the linebacking core with Bowman and Willis is outstanding. And my guy from Mizzou, Alden Smith, I love. I'm really curious to see, what Nnamdi Asomugha guy brings to this secondary. I mean, is it the Nnamdi Asomugha that we saw in Oakland, or is it going to be the Nnamdi Asomugha that we saw in Philadelphia, where when he took the money, he went to Philly, but things didn't really pan out there. So what kind of Nnamdi Asomugha the Niners getting?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, too. I touched on that a little bit in an article I put on GoldenGateSports.com this morning. And one thing about Nnamdi, when he was in Philly, he did not hit it off well with his teammates. You know, when he initially got there during training camp, you know, the guy was eating lunch in his car because he wasn't eating in the main hall with everybody else. Yeah, so they did not really hit it off. And as you know, in any type of team atmosphere, team relationship, you guys got to at least be able to get along. And that's evidence of where there could have been some problems. I talked to a few guys on the Eagles that told me some other things that came about. So that right there is a problem. But then, not to mention, you look at the scheme, you look at fit. You know, he's not a zone type of dude. He's a guy you got to let him get up. He's a long corner, long arms. He's a guy that got to get his hands on the receiver coming off the line of scrimmage, and he didn't get the chance really to do that in the Eagles' defensive scheme and their system, which was just I don't even know what it wasn't good.
You know, I have an opinion on it too. I mean, I have seen what the staff's done bringing in. I mean, they brought in a lot of guys like that. You know, Dante Whitner, Carlos Rogers. I mean, even Justin Smith. These guys kind of came over to a defense that was better suited to what they do. I have full confidence in Vic Fangio and the defensive staff to kind of get him back. Maybe not where he was in Oakland, but pretty damn close. And I think he can contribute. I mean, but the other guy on defense I'm really curious about is the Auburn linebackers, Corey Lemonois, who they traded up for in round 3. Thinking that he's going to kind of bring pressure off the edge. If San Francisco's front can get better, those cornerbacks will have less to worry about.
You know, my thing with him is, one thing I saw in a lot of the film that I watched on him is he allows the linemen to get their hands on him. And I'm hoping that having a guy like Alden Smith, who has some of the best hands, when I say hands, I'm talking about like the hand-to-hand combat, the ability to smack the lineman's hands down and get to him before he gets to you. I'm hoping that he will be able to work with Alden Smith and get that part of his game together, because I definitely saw some times where he really, truly got stonewalled. And you can't have that going against these guys, man. You look at guys like what we have on our team, you know, Anthony Davis and Joe Staley. You know, a guy like Anthony Davis gets his hands on you, you could forget it. So you have to be able to get him off of you, and that way you'll be able to get to the quarterback. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. He's definitely somebody to watch out for. I mean, Culliver and Los Rogers are two others you got to watch out for. You figure Los is the best option to cover slot receivers, and like we mentioned last week, you got Tavon Austin twice a year. You got Percy twice. Well, if he could fight those migraines, I mean, that's a whole different story. The only player that suffers from migraines is playing in the loudest stadium in the NFL. I mean, that's an interesting mix, but we'll see what happens there. So, I mean, there's a lot to look to with this defense. I mean, the continued development. Go ahead.
Big test early playing Green Bay. It seems like the Niners have the Packers' number, especially after that playoff game last year.
Right.
But you guys are going to be tested, you know, against Green Bay. As you said, you know, 2 games against the improved Rams. I think this is a huge year for St. Louis quarterback Sam Bradford. You know, what kind of guy is he going to be in this division? You have Carson Palmer going to Arizona. So the NFC West isn't that lame duck division that it used to be. I mean, this is now one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL, period. And when you look at this club overall, to me, you know, the back end is impressive. The guys that you mentioned, and also losing a guy that I know Turron loves, Deshaun Goldson, replaced by the rookie Eric Reed, who I had going to the Niners at the end of the first round of my last mock draft. They wound up moving up to get Eric Reed. I like him a lot. He's an athlete. He can play. He'll fit in. Team guy. Everything I heard about Eric Reed is good. So that, to me, is a solid first-round pick. I know they moved up once they saw Kenny Vaccaro go off the board to New Orleans. They were all about getting a safety to replace Goldson, and I think Eric Reed is a very good player, although I know you got a soft spot for Goldson there, Turron.
Yeah, you know, that's my man. You know, I saw him grow, and I predicted him to be a really good player. That really dates back to the Texans game, man. He had an interception and a forced fumble, and I just said to myself, like, yo, this guy is always around the ball. And then that same year, the Monday night game where he had 2 picks and a forced fumble, he hit Beanie Wells and made him fumble, and I said, yeah, that's my dude.
The hit on early Doucette was one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Of a legal hit.
I tell you what, I talked to DeSimone, and he told me that when he got the chance, he was going to light him up, and that was just based off of what happened the previous year.
Right.
When he's sitting on the ground after the play, and Doucette went and slapped him.
Smacked him.
And that's the one where Dion was saying 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, because DeSimone got up and he three-pieced him, but what good is it going to do when you're punching somebody's helmet? But DeSimone he's a great dude as far as interacting with fans and stuff like that. And, I got a lot of love for him, and I wish him the best in Tampa. I hated seeing him go, but unfortunately that was a necessary evil. You look at this defense, there's so much money invested in that defense, and then you got Alden Smith coming up. So there's going to be even more money invested in that defense after his deal is done. So it was more or less just one of those things. Okay, it's an opportunity cost. Unfortunately, we had to move on from DeSimone and in order to keep a guy like Alden. And let's face it, the safety position is not really one that they put a lot of money in. So it's going to happen.
Bryan, do you think it's advantageous that San Francisco's kind of got the football economics part down?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of it, Dylan. In this day and age in the NFL, we go back now probably 15 years where each team has pretty much had, that salary cap guru, that guy to manage the money and be able to squeeze all these contracts under the salary cap. And, obviously distributing that money amongst the younger players is key. And I think the Niners mold now under Trent Baalke has been very efficient, very effective. You look at some of the drafts that they've had, obviously getting a guy like Kaepernick in 2011 at the top of the second round when you had Alex Smith was something that we thought would happen, not necessarily with Kaepernick, but you knew Harbaugh wanted a quarterback. So now that you have your young quarterback intact and the guy only going into his third year, you still got a good young core of guys here that I think going down the road 5-6 years, you're going to be a competitive team. Like I said, the NFC West is better. But I think the Niners are clearly at the top of that class, and a lot of that has to do doing with, as you say, the front office and the way that this organization has been run. I know they had some down years, but to be able to bounce back with the Baalke-Harbaugh combination and now this young nucleus, it's very impressive. And this is a day and age where we see teams turn it around from year to year, but sometimes that's a flash in the pan. To me, the Niners are not a flash in the pan. I mean, they're a team that's done it the right way over the last couple of years to land a head coach like Harbaugh and know that he's a home run coach. I mean, there's been a lot of teams last 5 years, they've had multiple head coaches. That's not going to be the case with San Fran. You have your guy there, front office is set. And to be able to go out there with that type of confidence, knowing that, we have our 22, but we also have some backups that are pretty darn good too, and that has to do with Trent Baalke.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing also, looking at the way the roster is set, the Seahawks are set up similar, and Ross Tucker was talking about that the other day, and he was with Albert Breer. They were talking, and he made a really good point, Albert Breer did. And he said you look at teams like the Seahawks and the 49ers, they were able to hit on quarterbacks in the second and third round, and now you're not worried about that big deal, and you're able to be more active and lock other guys up on your roster. And he used Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is going to be making, $650,000 next year, this season coming up. So how much flexibility and leverage does that give you? Kaepernick, I think, is at $750. That gives you so much leverage to be able to go out and be as active as both of these teams have been. And it was a great point by Albert Breer.
Yeah, if they don't trade Alex to Kansas City, I don't think Bolden's in which case if Crabtree gets hurt, then San Francisco's in real trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I think it's funny, and things have come full circle to some extent with Colt McCoy going to the Niners now. I mean, there's a guy that we talked about Turron a few years ago being, the winningest quarterback in college football and coming out of a great program in Texas, but then you wonder what the guy could do in the NFL because he's not the biggest guy and he doesn't have the strongest arm. And now here he is on his second chance in San Fran. I think Harbaugh's going to do wonders with this guy. Now, hopefully he never has to play. Just like a guy like Ryan Nassib with the Giants behind Eli Manning. You never want to see the backup quarterback because you have a terrific first-string quarterback. But, again, that's where the depth comes in. That's where the scouting comes in. Maybe the Niners front office took a look at Colt McCoy in the draft a few years ago and saw some things that they liked about him, but not enough to anoint him a starting quarterback. But now you get him on the rebound as a backup quarterback. He's a smart kid. He wants to contribute to the football team. I like that as the Niners backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think the thing that you gain from him is the ability. You look, he ran some of the read option and the spread style offense at Texas. So I think that you definitely have the luxury of not having to retool the offense if, God forbid, something should happen to Cap. You know,
right.
you look at you going from Cap to Tolzien. Now you got two totally different type of quarterbacks. So that's a great point.
I was going to actually add, what if we see in Kansas City that Alex Smith is still the Harbaugh version of Alex Smith, not the pre-2011 version? Is Colt McCoy, I mean, is Harbaugh going to, maybe, is he going to be able to start flipping quarterbacks like we've seen with Matt Flynn and et cetera? Is Colt McCoy, if he shows something in the preseason, if he steps in at the end of games when San Francisco's putting games away, are they going to be able to flip that for more picks down the line?
Possibly. That's what we see teams like New England do when they, draft a guy like Ryan Mallett in the third round to stash him on the roster. Now, he's going to be a free agent after the season. But, yeah, you could flip these guys, absolutely. Maybe you could build up some worth on a Colt McCoy and some other players that you have on that second string. But, again, I think having a guy like Kaepernick is very different than having a guy like Alex Smith because he had so many different head coaches. He had so many different offensive coordinators that this kid battled through it. And, again, you go back to his high school team. I mean, he was playing with Reggie Bush. So
right.
At the highest level in the state of California. So this guy's no slouch. I mean, when people say, it was all about Urban Meyer's offense in college, that's why he became the number one pick. I mean, there's something about Alex Smith that's good. And if that good Alex Smith comes out in Kansas City, then good for the Chiefs. I mean, the Niners have to move forward because you have your quarterback of the future and of the present, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, that guy stays on the field for every snap. You don't have to take him out. Don't have to worry about anything. But they had to move on from Alex Smith. They made the trade. I don't necessarily think it will work out for Kansas City, to be honest with you, because I don't like the makeup of the rest of that ball club. I think it's going to take some time for Andy Reid to get things going there. But he's a capable quarterback. I mean, he'll be able to do some things with a guy like Dwayne Bowe, but they're not nearly on the same level as a team like San Francisco. And, again, looking at this division, Seattle's right there. You mentioned Russell Wilson, some of the other options that they have on that offense. Marshawn Lynch, absolute beast running the football. Interested to see what Arizona's going to do with Carson Palmer. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald already has said this is make or break. I mean, this is a year that Larry Fitzgerald wants to get back to the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily think it happens with Carson Palmer. I mean, how many times, guys, do we see great quarterbacks become available? Not too often. And this is now Carson Palmer's third team in 3 years. So I don't think that we're going to see that much success out of Arizona. I like Bruce Arians coming in there as the head coach. But, again, the wild card team to me in this division is St. Louis. Because you have a terrific head coach in Jeff Fisher, and you have a young developing quarterback in Sam Bradford. Now the Rams go out and they get all these weapons to put around Bradford. Now it's time for him to step up and prove that he can be what Colin Kaepernick is and maybe lead this team to a playoff berth. But as I see it right now, it's the Niners, it's the Seahawks, and then it's sort of everybody else. But there's a lot to prove for those guys in St. Louis.
Bryan, I wanted to ask, because while we're on the topic of franchise quarterbacks and that kind of leadership, I had written something for Bleacher Report about what kind of the future of Colin Kaepernick, and it was, in a nutshell, it was what Randall Cunningham should have been. You take the years running in Philadelphia with one of the all-time passing seasons he had in Minnesota in '98, and we never got to see what that would look like put together. And that total package. Do you think Colin's scratching the surface of a basically something that could be revolutionary to the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this hybrid quarterback in the last decade become very popular for teams. But, it's hard to have, as you say, the complete package. Now, you look at a guy like Tim Tebow, can't throw the ball. He can do a lot of other good things, but he can't throw the ball. Here you have Colin Kaepernick throwing up, the first pitch at a baseball game, and he's hitting 90 miles an hour on the radar gun. I mean, this guy is something special because we saw him under pressure make huge plays for the Niners. I mean, to step into that type of situation, that's high pressure. I mean, you're playing for one of the flagship franchises in the NFL. All of a sudden, you get thrown into the mix. He helps lead this team. to a division title, to a playoff berth, to an NFC championship, to a Super Bowl, almost leads them back in the second half to win the Super Bowl. And because of that mobility, his agility, and that arm, which is strong and accurate, I think we're looking at an amazing weapon. I mean, you can't really, RG3, he's in that class. But again, we're talking about 2 or 3 guys that are that type of quarterback, and I would put Aaron Rodgers atop that group, because to me, he's still a guy that runs. He can throw on the run. I'll never forget back in 2007, I was at Packers training camp, and this was when Favre was still there. And here's Aaron Rodgers, throwing 40-yard bombs to Donald Driver down the sideline, one after another. And sure enough, he turns out to be this great player, but he had to sit behind the bar. Kaepernick had to sit a little bit, but now it's his time. And I think when you look at these hybrid types of quarterbacks, he's every bit as good as a guy like RG3. It's going to come down to the supporting cast. And I think the Niners have a better supporting cast than the Redskins right now. The Packers are going to be a good team. We got them week 1 for your Niners, so that's going to be a great matchup. But I think having a guy like Kaepernick, Dylan, and as you said, all the things that he can do, it just makes it tough on a defense. Do you sit back? Do you spy the guy? Do you play a zone? Add an extra guy back there in terms of a safety maybe instead of a linebacker? And then you're, you got a guy like Frank Gore coming at you in the running game. That's going to hurt you if you go to 5 defensive backs, but it may help against, a guy like Kaepernick scrambling. So it's almost, pick your poison. And I think that's the great thing that, here's Kaepernick, 23, 24 years old, guy's only going to get better. And all this controversy about what hat he wears on 4th of July, who cares? I mean, come on. We can't wait for the season to get here. This guy's going to be a hell of a quarterback for a long time to come.
Yeah. Hey, we could go on all day, man, but unfortunately we got to go ahead and wrap this up. And Dylan, now you see why I always called into his show, man.
I could talk to Bryan all day, man.
Exactly.
I can't believe it. It's been half an hour already talking to you guys. It's been fun. I miss it.
It's radio gold.
We'll have to do it again, man.
To B-Mac. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Much love for you. And as always, man, it was awesome talking to you. And we definitely want to get you back on.
Turron, thanks so much for having me. I'm very happy for your success in your program. Wish you the best of luck with it, Dylan. It's great to talk to you, and want to thank your producer, Bryan, for reaching out, too. And, of course, shout out to Niner Nation. Again, one of the top teams in the NFL coming up in 2013. So a lot to be proud of and a lot to look forward to if you're a San Fran fan.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central radio network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Niner Talk Central Radio, brought to you by Onnit.com. Pro Football Central Radio listeners automatically get 10% off vitamins and supplements by going to Onnit.com. I'm here with Turron Davenport. We just had a great show. We had Bryan McGovern of SiriusXM Radio, and we also had AJ Jenkins, San Francisco 49ers wide receiver. What'd you think, man?
Oh, that was awesome, man. B-Mac is formerly of Sirius Radio. And that late hit show is definitely suffering not having them on. But, yeah, man, it was great, man. Just like old times talking to B-Mac. So that was definitely a pleasure. And I was very, very delighted to get the chance to talk to A.J. Jenkins. That's a rare interview, folks. You don't see him in the media often. So it definitely was a privilege to be able to bring that to you guys, Niner fans. And it was a great conversation. Once he got going, it was cool talking to him. Great show, man. Really good show.
Yeah, a week before, the veterans and everybody's there for training camp. AJ won't report till next week, so it was good to be able to talk to him right before he kind of heads into a big off season.
Yeah, this is a big training camp for him, man. The opportunity is there for him to step up and prove his worth as a first-round pick. I think he's going to do it. He seems like he's ready to just do whatever he has to do to become a part of the team and a contributing part, that is, and I'm excited for him.
Yeah, no, he's actually got a legitimate shot this year, and everything he sounded focused. He sounded pretty zoned in to what he's got to do this year.
Right. So that's gonna wrap up the show, man. It was another good episode. Excited to get the chance to talk to you once again, Dylan, my partner in crime. Next week, we're going to have a good show. Got a few prospects lined up, and we'll definitely have a good interview or two for our listeners, and just keep tuning in.
Till next week.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.